One that can see.
Where there's thunder, there's lightning. I am John Nada. Wanted to talk a little bit today in brief about religion and hypergamy, and obviously this will be just a small summarization of the two subjects because I mean, it's such a wide, array of topics to try to cover in 15 minutes. But my freshman year of college, I met this girl, and things seemed to be going good. We seemed to hit it off. She invited me to a concert, and not long after that, we started a relationship, and things seemed to be good. In this period of time, I also kind of became friends with these two other girls, and two of the girls were roommates, whereas the girl I was dating was kind of a friend of theirs loosely. They didn't spend a whole lot of time together, but it seemed like when I started dating her, the four of us were kind of always around each other. And I remember that they had went to some kind of get together off campus, to somebody's house, and one of the girls mentioning to me that, well, so and so, we went to this person's house, and they were really well to do, and were a doctor, and they just had this nice house. And the girl that I was dating, she was saying that, oh, she was making all kinds of comments about how beautiful the house was and how she wanted to live in something like this one day, and just kind of all these kind of, I guess, materialistic statements. And at the time, I didn't really think a whole lot about it, but she more or less was saying, you're going into ministry, or you're at a Bible college, you're going to get a degree in ministry, so it would follow that you're going to end up being a minister, and ministers don't make that much money unless you're Joel Osteen or somebody like that, which there are very few of those, so, or at least very few people that get to that level. And more or less kind of intimating that the relationship's not going to work out. This girl wants this kind of lifestyle, and there's no way you're going to be able to provide it. Now, funny enough, the girl that I was dating was a preacher's daughter herself, and so at the time, like I said, I didn't really have the context for what all that meant. But looking back on it now, it makes total sense. The hypergamy that was there, in terms of, this is the guy I'm dating right now, but ultimately when I get ready to settle down, I want to try to trade up for somebody that maybe is a little bit more well off, but this is just kind of a fun fling or whatever. That's at least how I look at it now. But funny enough, the girl that made the comments to me ended up, after we broke up, which wasn't, I mean, the relationship didn't last that long. It was maybe a 2 or 3 month relationship, and not long after that happened, I remained friends with the other two, but the girl that made the comment to me about not being able to provide the kind of lifestyle that this other girl wanted, kind of made it known that she was actually interested in me. So like I said, at the time it seemed like maybe she just kind of said what she thought she needed to say to get the other person out of the picture, but I didn't end up dating the second girl, and she ended up moving on pretty quick to somebody else, and not getting married, or getting married not long after that, which is kind of funny because I don't keep in touch with a lot of people from college, but you know how social media and all that is, which I'm not a part of now, but have been in the past. And it's kind of funny because the original girl I dated ended up marrying a guy from the college, and neither one of them are well to do. And so I don't know, I guess maybe she settled for somebody in the end. But the the thing with the other girl and the that whole situation, it seemed to be it was kind of a running joke at the school that don't be surprised if you don't get engaged or married. Don't be surprised if you end up engaged or married by your second, or at least by your third or fourth year in the college. In fact, it was almost kind of like if you make it to be a senior and you're not engaged yet, or you're not married yet, then that was odd. But of course, in normal culture and society, that wouldn't be looked on as weird at all, at all. But at a Bible college, it is totally seen that way. And of course, I don't know. The school has changed quite a bit since I've been there, so I don't know if that's still the prevailing mindset. But I feel like a lot of these people jumped into relationships because of the whole sexual aspect of things. That, well, we can't have anything to do with sex. We can't do anything sexual at all unless we're married. And so I feel like a lot of people just more or less got married almost for that reason and that reason alone. And so it kind of reminds me also of a guy that I know that I believe his freshman year he got engaged, if not married his freshman year, but I want to say he got engaged his freshman year and then was married his senior year. And not more than maybe 3 or 4 years after graduation from college, they're divorced. And then he married again. So obviously he didn't learn his mistake on that one. But it's a funny atmosphere. They used to have this thing, these pageants at the beginning of each year for the incoming freshman girls, in terms of, what kind of, basically a dress code thing. And what insulted me about that was not so much that they were, kind of telling girls, not to dress this way or that way. That wasn't really what insulted me. What insulted me was that it insinuated that men were these beasts, with insatiable appetites and had no morals about them. You know, basically, you better cover up because we're all just a bunch of horny schoolboys. Basically, that's what was truly insulting about it to me. Not so much what it said about the women, but what it actually said about the guys. That we were just these intellectless beings that just ran on sex and sex alone. And then another thing is, this wasn't really the main reason that I ended up not doing ministry. I had actually done some ministry while in school and kind of did a little bit after school, and I could go into detail about that whole backstory because it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with MGTOW, but some of that is related to the fact that it's really hard to be a minister or to even get a preaching gig and be single. And so, I wasn't at a point where I was engaged or married to anybody, so it was just kind of like, well, it would be hard to be taken seriously and actually get to a place that would want to hire me as a minister and be single. There's just a lot of like baggage or whatever for some reason that comes with that, because Paul was single and even talks about how being single is actually better because it allows you to do more in terms of spreading the gospel. And Jesus himself was single, which I guess we really shouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, since he's was touted as being more than a man, but even so, like I said, Paul and there are of course many other examples you could point to of more human origins. But another thing is not too long ago, a little while after the school, after graduating and everything, like I said, I kind of, I've always been into religion and interested in religion, so it's never been above me to visit a synagogue or mosque or, another church. And so during a period of time, I was kind of doing some of this, and I ended up at an LDS church. And there were a lot of things that fascinated me about LDS culture and beliefs, although their beliefs after a while, I really realized after so many services and fast and testimony meetings and things like that their beliefs really didn't run that deep. Their beliefs were essentially get married and have kids. And if you were a single person, you were a pariah there. You could have been the best, most, charitable person, but because you were single, you were seen as a pariah. And there's a lot of hypergamy with that. I noticed that a lot of the coincidentally, or rather not, a lot of the high up, people holding high offices, bishops and elders and EQ presidents and all those types of people, all tended to be very successful in their outside of the church life, and tended to be pretty well off. And it was kind of no surprise that many of the women there were married to the more successful types. And so it was almost a prerequisite that you had to make a lot of money and have a nice house and have a good career to even think about dating or marrying one of the LDS women there. And then on top of that, of course, you had to have the proper church pedigree, and if you were a convert, it was kind of looked down on. And then on top of that, if you didn't go on a mission or this, that, or the other. I mean, even to the point where if you weren't from Utah, that could be seen as a mark against you. And so it existed pretty heavily there. I one time attended a what they call a singles award. I went there once just to kind of see what if anything was different there. And I mean, not one person, and I mean not one person came up and said hi or introduced themselves or anything. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. Seeing as how if you go to a regular award, people kind of swarm you. So I don't know. It's pretty heavy, regardless of what denomination you talk about or what church you talk about. And something that I've always found interesting also is, a lot of guys get up there in their talks, or you hear a lot of preachers get up there and basically talk about how their wife's, their better half and the smarter one, and I'm such an idiot. Just that whole archetype, especially that you see in commercials and things today about the idiot father or the idiot man, and it's just so funny when you think about it, because especially when you think about it in terms of the LDS church, because women aren't allowed to hold the priesthood, and of course in a lot of churches women aren't allowed to. It's not so much a priesthood in other churches, but there are a lot of churches, women can't preach or women can't really do anything related to that kind of ministry or whatever. But yet, if they're so superior to men and they're so much smarter and everything, it's always been kind of odd to me why God would choose such a lesser creature as man, uh, so-called to do all this stuff. I don't know. To me, what it really is a platitude to, I guess, make the women folk feel better about themselves for not being able to have that authority or whatever in the church. But funny enough, more women attend church than men when you look at the statistics. And over the years, more and more men have left the church. I don't know. That could be for a variety of reasons. Some people claim, and I'm inclined to agree to an extent, that a lot of the churches have become very feminized and anti-male. Check out Mark Driscoll sometime, and just kind of look at some of the stuff he says. There's a lot of shaming and berating of men for one, various sundry reasons or another. And I think, men are just tired of hearing that. I mean, they may have to hear it in the workplace because they got to eat, but they're not going to sit there and be dressed down, by some paid televangelist, prophet, Profit, and they're just not going to endure that. Well, that's pretty much all I got on this subject. I don't know a whole lot about. I do know quite a bit about the LDS Church, but I also know quite a bit about many churches and different religions as well. And this is a subject that I'd like to cover more as time goes on, because I think there's a lot to be said about a mystery Babylon, if you will, that fuses the culture, religion, and politics. I don't think that this is just simply a gender thing, but I think this is a wide sweeping subject that just happens to be played out in the gender dynamics and dating world and relationships and all that. But there's certainly more going on behind the scenes than just the whole movement of MGTOW and or rather, I guess, the non-movement of MGTOW. But anyway, that's really all I've got. Anybody, again, any questions or any topic ideas you'd like to hear covered, shoot me a message or email or whatever, and just let me know. But as far as everything else goes, remember, you are free to do as you're told. This has been the Days of Thunder.